Archaeology is not about objects. Archaeology is not about things. Archaeology is about people. And it's about the people who created those things and give meaning to those things. My name is Sean Ulm. I'm Professor of Archaeology at James Cook University. I grew up on the central Queensland coast in a little town called Hervey Bay, where all of my childhood was by the sea, in a community with many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and South Sea Islander people. And as I was growing up, I had a passion for working with Indigenous people, a passion for the past and a passion for the coasts. I feel very fortunate to collaborate closely with Indigenous communities. My work at the moment is primarily engaged with Indigenous communities across Northern Australia and in understanding the long history of environmental change in Australia and how people have interacted with the environment to change that environment over time. Sea levels are predicted to rise up to 1 metre by the end of this century. 20,000 years ago, the sea level was 125 metres lower than it is today. And at that time, Australia was connected to both Papua New Guinea and Tasmania. And that's the continent that Aboriginal and Melanesian people arrived on 65,000 years or more ago. The earliest evidence of people colonising Australia is now under the ocean. However, islands around the Australian coastline, many of which only formed in the last 10,000 years, give us an opportunity to understand at a very fine scale what happens when people first arrive in island environments. The more research we do in Australian archaeology, the more we realise that Indigenous people across Australia were very varied. They lived completely different lifestyles, spoke different languages, but they also had very different technologies. They had different population densities, they had different ways of getting their food, they had different ways of moving across the landscape, and different ways of managing their interactions with other people. So in many of these island environments, Aboriginal traditional owners have been removed for many decades and often live on other islands or in central communities. The absence of people leads to very different burning patterns. We can use archaeology to work out when people first colonised those environments. And we do that principally by looking at pollen cores and the charcoal contained in those pollen cores. So we can actually reconstruct the environment before people arrived, and then we can look at what happens after people arrived and see those different burning patterns. And we can often trace those burning patterns over hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of years and see patterns of changing vegetation communities that people have created. This means that all of the environment that Europeans observed when they invaded Australia, they weren't natural products at all. Aboriginal people had been living in Australia for many tens of thousands of years at the time of European arrival. And those environments that Europeans encountered were anthropogenic. They were made by people. My hope is that all of us can reach a deeper appreciation of how those people over many generations continue to shape Australia. And I think the real challenge for archaeologists in the future is to meaningfully grapple with that diversity and work closely with communities to tell their stories. And by contributing to that, we're helping to understand the fabric of Australia and how we got to be where we are today.